Is this what Halloween Kills is going to be about? Is this the direction that this new trilogy, I guess you could say, is heading in? Well, according to Jamie Lee Curtis, it might be. Let's talk about this. That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. Okay, in this video, I just want to go over what Jamie Lee Curtis said in a recent interview, a red carpet interview that she did. I don't know who she did it with, but nonetheless, she did do this. And she was at some premiere, I believe, for Knives Out or something for Knives Out, which she is in, which is getting great reviews and great buzz, by the way. It got great reviews and buzz here in Toronto at TIFF, at the Toronto International Film Festival. So I'm really excited on seeing it. It looks really good. And anyway, so she was promoting that movie, but like a lot of actors do when they are at certain functions and events promoting a certain project, they will often get asked questions about another project that they are working on. And that is what happened here. And of course, they are shooting Halloween Kills right now as we speak in North Carolina. Principal photography has begun. And this is what she had to say recently. She said this. Okay, so let's go over it and then we'll kind of dissect it and see if we can speculate and figure some shit out. Okay, here we go. What I love that David and Danny and company did is they connected the dots for 40 years. Now they're going back to really unpack the first movie, bringing back all those characters whose lives were affected by what happened in 1978. And then the last movie, which is Halloween Ends, is the sort of cultural phenomenon of violence. That's what the third movie ultimately is, a very powerful examination of violence. It comes at it from a slightly different way. You'll like it, if you believe in me at all. I promise you, what David Gordon Green has come up with as a way to complete this trilogy is sensational. That's what she had to say, essentially, about the direction and sort of, brief kind of, insight into the direction that they're going in. So this is interesting. So this is what, just going on that alone, because we don't have an official synopsis, we don't even have a log line. That's as best as we've gotten into the, little window and peek into kind of what maybe they're thinking, right? What direction they're going in. So we know that Jamie Lee Curtis has said ad nauseum, it almost became a meme. And not that there isn't truth to what she's saying, but when she was promoting Halloween 2018, the word trauma came out of her mouth a lot. Not that there isn't some truth to that, because there in fact is. But she felt the need to, really hammer that point home anytime she was talking about it. So it's like that, those things where you'll say a word over and over and over again and it tends to lose its meaning, like trauma. That sounds weird now. Trauma. What the hell is that? It kind of got like that with her. But anyway, so that's what the first movie was about, sort of the symbolism and the bigger picture kind of what that was about, especially as it relates to Laurie Strode. This movie is sort of piggybacking on that, is what it looks like. And now we're bringing in more characters from that experience from 1978, such as Lindsay Wallace, such as Tommy Doyle, who no doubt also experienced a certain level of trauma, we would presume, from that night. Maybe not quite as intensely as Laurie Strode, but they were there and they were young children. Now, because they were young children, I'm not a psychologist, obviously, but they might have been a little more resilient because they were kids. If we were looking at this from a factual standpoint, but maybe not. I don't know. There could have been things that, you know, I would imagine that we are going to see Tommy and Lindsay also dealing with the residual effects of this trauma that happened to them. I mean, she says it here that we really unpack the first movie. And when I read that, I thought, I don't unpack the first movie. What are you doing? No, I don't want. But then she goes on to say, bringing back all those characters whose lives were affected by what happened in 1978. Okay, I hope that's what you mean, because I don't want to dive into the psychology and the psyche and the mystique of Myers. That has to remain a mystery. Okay, that is part of the fundamental foundation that is driving this narrative forward. So that has to remain a mystery. But bringing in Tommy, bringing in Lindsay, bringing in Lonnie Lamb, even though he wasn't really affected, maybe he was affected in some sort of collateral damage, weird way that we don't even know about or something. I don't know. But it's interesting to see sort of how they've dealt with that as well. And so that's interesting to me. And then, of course, the final movie is, you know, all of them probably rising up, facing their demons together as a group, you know, and once and for all killing the shape and the evil as we know it. I mean, that's kind of sounds like the direction that they're going. That's a very surface level way of looking at it. I understand that. But that's what I get from this. Really not a whole lot here. So the first movie is about Laurie Strode in terms of how she dealt with this trauma, and if you look at it like a 3-act play, like a trilogy, right? Even though it's you know, really this part 2 is really part 3 and part 3 is really part 4. I get all that. But if you look at it on its own as a 3-act play, the second act is usually always the darkest for our protagonists, right? At least it's supposed to be. Last Jedi. Anyway, so it's not supposed to end on a good note. So it's entirely possible that this second act, if you will, for all intents and purposes, could actually be quite dark. I mean, you have a name like Halloween Kills, after all, and we could really dive into the psyche of how it has affected Tommy and Lindsay, and it's almost Michael Myers' revenge, right? Like revenge for the shit that Laurie did to him at the end of the first movie. And then now Laurie has to deal with the fact that, oh my God, I spent all these years waiting for him. I built this fucking compound and shit, and I was fucking ready, man. And it didn't work. I either fucked up or it didn't work. So now she has to deal with that reality as well, in addition to all these other people coming back. It could be actually quite a dark film, and not on the side of our main protagonists. And then, of course, if you're treating it like a 3-act play, the third act is the redemption, right? Where they rise up and they sort of, you know, they face their fears and blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that's what's going to happen here. But it sounds like those themes are at play. And, you know, even though I wasn't a huge fan of the 2018 film, I had some major issues with it. If this is true, I like the effort. I mean, I don't know if the movie's going to be good. It could be some fucking dog shit. It could be. But I at least like the thought that's going into it. If Jamie Lee Curtis is correct and she's not reading too much into the script, you know, and David Gordon Green's like, yeah, okay, if that's how you see it, Jamie, sure. Gee, I didn't even know I wrote that. Like, you know, as long as it's not her reading too much into the themes and that those were conscious creative choices and decisions, I kind of like that. You know, it gives a bit more weight. It gives a bit more credibility to the overall arcing story that they're trying to tell. And it's not just simply a slasher movie at play. And if you're going to do a sequel to that movie, and if you're going to carry on this story, you want to add a certain level of maturity to it. And, you know, this is interesting. You know, it has the potential to be interesting. It's all in terms of the execution. But I will say that is what I take anyway from it at face value is, okay, so, you know, like I said, to recap here before I end this video, she says, for 40 years now, they were going back to really unpack the first movie. And I thought, oh, don't do that. I don't want to know any. But it sounds like they're not talking about Myers. She says, bring back all those other characters, essentially, that their lives were also affected as well. Okay, so we're going to really dive into that. That's what it sounds like. And then the last movie is the sort of cultural phenomenon of violence. That's what the third movie ultimately is, a very powerful examination of violence. Okay, fair, but it is the third and final movie in the trilogy. It has to be a certain level of conclusion, has to be there, redemption, rising up, completing the arc. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's how I'm seeing it anyway, at face value from what she said. But we'll be able to dissect it a bit more once an official synopsis comes out, or a log line, or bits and tidbits of information tend to come out. But it's interesting, I guess. I mean, it's, you know, I like, if it's true, I like that there's at least some effort being thought about here in terms of what are we telling here? Like, what are we saying? That's just not the same thing over and over again. So anyways, folks, my name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time, and I'm not posting here. All my links are in the description, as well as links to my Patreon, my merch store, IMDb, Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Instagram now. It's all down there. Check them out till your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. Anyway, yeah, Halloween Kills shooting now. Cheers.